The landscape of the modern legal industry is changing. Yeah, like you haven't heard us say that before. But it's true. Firms are shifting to permanent hybrid workspaces, clients are driving new ways of billing, and Microsoft Teams is allowing us to collaborate seamlessly around the globe. And of course, technology is at the center of this change, empowering firms to develop new business models and strategies. Sometimes these changes can be overwhelming, so it's important to look to industry leaders for guidance. Luckily, Prosperoware is full of them. And this week, we're going one-on-one with Tina Harkins, one of legal tech's most influential trailblazers. Hey everyone, Mike Zawissa here, content creator with Prosperoware and your host for Prosperotune. I'm back on the mic this week after Mel's incredible International Women's Day episode. I was fortunate enough to be producing the forum, and the discussions Mel, Sherry, and Juliana had were illuminating, honestly. On a similar note, this week I'm happy to say we're featuring a lost episode of sorts. A little while ago, Blarina and I sat down with Tina Harkins, our Director of Customer Success here at Prosperoware, and one of the legal industry's most prominent women in leadership as well. Since Blarina's time at Prosperoware ended before launch, this episode had been lost, using air quotes here, in production for quite a bit. But I'm happy to say that we're able to bring you our conversation with Tina just in time for Women's History Month as well. Without further ado, let's hear what Tina had to say about her work, the industry, and what it means to be a woman in legal tech.
Tina, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to share with our listeners the fact that, earlier this year you were named one of the 5 most influential women in the legal technology by a Legal SI. So can you talk a little bit about this and what it's like to be so impactful in a typically more like male-dominated field, or maybe how the industry has changed when it comes to this? So we'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Hi, sure, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Yeah, it was a real honor to be highlighted in Robin Addis's article, and especially alongside such other really influential women across legal technology. I think generally I've been fortunate to have had some really terrific mentors, both men and women in my career. And many of the men that I've worked with have also always been very helpful in furthering my career. So I never found it as a roadblock, but it is just amazing to see and wonderful to see more and more women being interested in this field, um, because and not just women, other diverse groups within, outside of, your stereotypical, Silicon Valley, or technology, male technologists, because this industry really definitely needs different points of view, and that's one thing you get with, a diverse audience. Interestingly, I feel that while Prosperoware in general has a lot of women, and we do have a very diverse workforce. The technologists, the actual developers, engineers, quality assurance, real technical people that are women are still outside of the United States. In the United States, technology, you see more women in the business of technology, not necessarily as the actual technologists. And I think I stated that in the article, in Robin's article initially, is that, I love watching my women, the young women in Kosovo and in India who are developers, and they're just so smart and so talented. And it's wonderful to work with them. It's exciting to watch women in this field come up in this field. But I still think we have a long way to go, and especially in the United States, I would like to see more women in become more technologists. But it's still great that we have so many, especially in our company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great to also have role models like you so that, others that want to join in the legal technology, they don't feel that they have to shy away because of certain challenges, but actually look upon people like you and be able to, bring their best to it. So
Yeah.
it's great to see. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
So can you talk a little about the way that the legal and legal tech industry has changed as you've been around them?
For a long time, I think legal technology didn't really advance very much. I would say over the last 20 years, other than just general, improvements in technology. But over the past, I would say within the past 5 years, we've seen a lot of very big changes, and primarily with the move of a lot of technologies into cloud is probably one of the biggest ones. It's really, certainly the pandemic had a lot of impact on that in legal. Legal was probably lagging a little bit behind the rest of, you know, industries in the U.S. and elsewhere when it comes to adopting cloud technologies. But with the pandemic and the force to remote work, cloud technologies have really kind of taken off, and a lot of law firms and corporate legals are now more interested in cloud technologies. And then I would say from a business standpoint, the emergence of legal operations in both corporate legal departments and law firms has probably been the second biggest thing I've seen over the course of my career, where you know previously law firms would charge hourly rates, and clients would pay those rates, and now there's a move underway for probably the past 6-7 years, where things are now more handled through a legal operations team, and there are now more alternative fee arrangements and budgeting and planning for matters, and more transparency generally overall between
Mhm.
law firms and their clients.
Lorena, sorry, I think I know you had a follow-up for this one, but this actually reminds me a little bit of what we were talking about with Sheetal last week, Indreen and I, if you don't mind. I had a follow-up to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, Tina talking about like new ways that firms are kind of addressing pricing and matter planning and along those lines. Last week with Sheetal, we spoke about it mainly from like a financial perspective, or specifically, a cost perspective. But from a process standpoint, like you were saying, are we seeing a new way in which lawyers and associates and clients are coming together to address matters as well, not just from a pricing standpoint, but from a collaboration standpoint?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that that goes part and parcel with this overall transparency now between outside
Mhm.
uh, counsel and law firm or their clients, in that there's, previously to a lot of law firms would use extranet technologies in order to share and collaborate with their clients, but it was done on a very kind of document by document basis. And it wasn't really a true collaborative effort from a project team standpoint. I think with the advent of Teams, and again, the pandemic forcing everybody into remote work and forcing people into a new paradigm or a new way of working, where they're now constantly on remote meetings and using technologies like Teams to collaborate, that it just made it that much easier for law firms to collaborate with their clients. They can invite their clients to their matter team in Microsoft Teams. They can have conversations with them over Teams. They can co-author and share documents. They can share task plans. So I think it's taken it to a whole new level.
Since we're talking about, collaboration, how do you see, Tina, this newest hybrid work with, Microsoft Teams disrupting the industry and not just the legal industry? And how is that different from what you've been seeing up until now across the industry?
Previously, when you were working on a matter or project team, chances are you were working generally in the same office. If you had wanted to meet, everybody would meet in a conference room, or you'd pop into someone's office to have a quick conversation. And those things don't exist anymore, or at least not in the way that they used to, because people are in, again, now some people are home, some people are in the office, some people are in different offices across the planet, across the city, across the country. Everything's handled now differently, and technologies like Microsoft Teams really helps to bring all of those people together, and being able to I think everybody knows now, or initially starts all of their work in teams, right? So they get on the teams. They can have quick teams calls with the project team. They can have, again, share documents and co-author documents. So I think everything now, it seems like everything initiates from teams and then works their way outward from there. So all conversations start from teams, and document collaboration starts from teams, et cetera. So I mean, I think that's the biggest impact it's had on the kind of the hybrid work model.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, Teams has been this great disruptor, changing and kind of pushing forward this digital transformation across a variety of industries. But even with Teams, it has its own set of challenges. And as you know, we created our own solution, Prosperoware CAM. And so, can you talk about how some of the things that organizations might be drawn when it comes to CAM and how it tackles some of the challenges for Microsoft Teams?
When it comes to teams with law firms, Teams is an awesome platform for collaboration across any organization, and any organization can use it regardless of their industry. Legal, and have been in this business a very long time. Legal provides or presents some really unique challenges that you don't necessarily see in other organizations. Things like conflicts and ethical walls, who can see and work on a project team and who can't see and work on a project team. So security is a different model than you see in other places. The types of how teams would be laid out. I mean, law firms are very document centric. They rely on documents. They generate and produce a lot of documents. So being able to organize that structure in a way that makes sense, but also organizing matters into logical work streams, because legal work is very, in some cases, very routine. You have different phases of a matter that generally happen regardless of the type of matter. There's always certain things that happen for within each particular matter type. So litigation matters all have certain unique work streams. M&As have very unique work streams. Real estate transactions have unique work streams. So being able to tailor the team around those work streams, I think, is really important. Being able to also share externally and internal collaboration as well, and being able to secure different aspects of the team in order to facilitate that internal and external collaboration. So that's one of the things that our CAM solution does, is it puts a legal wrapper around Microsoft Teams in a way that helps law firms continue to work in ways that they're used to working.
Exactly. And why do you think that, because you talked about a couple of, provisioning features, why do you think that it's so important to have provisioning for Teams? How do we help when it comes to that?
Yeah, for exactly those reasons, is being able to have standardized template structures for teams. Uh, I always talk about the consistent end user experience. Lawyers are very busy people. They bill their time. They can't waste time hunting and pecking around for information. Where do I go to find this information? Where do I go to save this information? Where do I go to have this conversation? If you have a template structure for your teams, so that every similar matter has the same structure, the same naming convention, it's easy for any any lawyer to join any team and know exactly where to go within that Microsoft team to get the information that they need, or to have a certain conversation. So the channel structure is templated, the tabs are templated, everything's right there for the lawyer to just hit the ground running when they join a team or start a new matter.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like, the Teams plus Cam combo. Um, Not only does it make your workspace more efficient and practical, but it does seem like it has, especially for legal, like you're saying, that sort of legal bent in mind, in terms of making sure that it's easily, you can easily templatize it, and the tabs are all right there. The dashboard is laid out open for you. But compared to other provisioning engines on the market, do you think What solutions seem to really resonate with, or what features of the CAM solution seem to resonate with, um, you know, organizations beyond just those things? Or are there any, because you deal with clients a lot, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've heard it all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's quite a few things. I mean, we try to be very flexible, and again, we try to keep the end user, ultimately the end user in mind. While CAM isn't a necessarily a platform that's used by end users, other than in very specific ways, the ultimate goal is to get end users to adopt technologies like Microsoft Teams to adopt their document management systems and use those systems. They're all very expensive systems. Law firms pay a lot of money for those systems, and it doesn't help when their users aren't using it, right? If they
Mhm.
don't find value in it. So that's what CAM really attempts to do. But we provide a lot of flexibility in how the teams are provisioned. So whether they're provisioned in an automated fashion or whether they're provisioned through a workflow where individuals can request teams, we have approval processes. And again, we can standardize the structure of the team in very specific ways, whether it's a legal matter team or whether it's an administrative or departmental team as well. I mean, we're not just limited to just legal matters. I mean, there's other projects that go on inside law firms and other organizations that are not legal focused. So being able to have that flexibility to provision that, and then ultimately, it's about governance of those teams and how content, gets into its final resting place prior to any, disposition of that content. So as an example, if we're working in a Microsoft team collaborating on documents with our clients, we want that when the matter closes, we want to make sure, or even periodically during the matter, we want to make sure that those documents, maybe and those OneNotes that are in the team, get saved over to the document management system, because then they can sit there, they can reside there, and then the records team or the information governance teams within the law firms can then adequately dispose of them or put them into their standardized retention policies or retention controls so that they can ultimately dispose of that information when they need to. So that's CAM facilitates all aspects of this, from the inception of the matter and the team and the workspace through the life cycle of the matter, and then finally the ultimate disposition of the matter.
So when it comes to hybrid work and all of that, what we've seen in the past year as well has been a rise in cyber attacks and, organizations thinking more about data governance and the necessity to think about the governance strategy or framework as to how they will tackle some of these, challenges. So when it comes specifically to CAM and the data protection features that it offers, why do you think that data minimization is so essential for organizations to take into consideration?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the hybrid work. When if you think about how people join organizations now and how they leave organizations, onboarding of people into a project team or a matter team or into an organization and what access they need, and when people leave organizations, what happens to the data. Now, traditionally, for a very long time, all content in law firms, or the majority of content, was public to everybody who worked at the law firm. And there was a very good reason for this, is that they share knowledge. That knowledge is probably one of the most valuable assets a law firm has. And it's a precedence-based business where you don't reinvent the wheel every time. You reuse what's there before. And that's kind of the primary goal of the way the American legal system works. So everything being open causes, is great for knowledge sharing, but it's not so great for security. And especially nowadays when you have, identity theft and using people's personal information now is, can wreak havoc on individuals, that everybody needs to be extra diligent about securing information. What we try to do is with CAM is that, first of all, from the provisioning process, we can provision things based on who can see it or who should see it. I mean, does everybody need to see every single matter in the firm? Probably not. Or definitely not. You really should only be able to see things that you need to see, things that you're working on. So that's one way we can help minimize, that security, or help to enforce security. And then when we come to, once the matter is completed or the project's completed, and this could even be a marketing project within a law firm. I mean, marketers take personal information like email addresses, phone numbers, addresses, home addresses, business addresses in order to send out marketing materials. So when an event is completed, things need to be disposed of. And with CAM, uh, you know, certain modules in CAM allow us to do that kind of disposition, allow us to say, hey, this person's left the organization. We should remove that person's access completely from any document that they, or workspace or team or channel that they have access to. Or if, a project is completed, let's get rid of the stuff we don't need anymore, the things with, PII or PHI, and then we can shut down the matter, make it read only, and then we can even close it out completely or destroy it when it's completed. So it really helps to minimize that data. I think law firms still have a long way to go in that ultimate disposition of content. Again, we're trying to change, 100 years of the way law firms worked, um, and with regard to keeping content around. Um, well, maybe not 100, but certainly 60 years of the way. I mean, law firms have been around for hundreds of years, right? And if you lawyers would keep paper records around for decades after they needed them, because if they had that one brief that they wanted to go back and review again, or I had this great language in this one document I wrote, I want to reuse it, they would keep it around for just that purpose. So
Yeah, and we've come a long way.
Yeah, but there's still a long way to go, a very long way to go.
Yeah. And and when it comes to data minimization, or we're calling interchangeably data disposition, I think it's also very important to have that in mind as we're collaborating with platforms such as Microsoft Teams, because we're all inviting, I don't know, guest users and doing external collaboration as well as internal, right? So you want to make sure that only the right people have access to the projects or matters working, and making sure that you don't keep the data for longer than you have to. So, always being aware of the fact that you're trying to reduce risk instead of bringing more to your organization. So do you think that organizations are doing that, are aware of that, and are doing enough of it as the time goes on?
Yeah, I think all organizations are aware of it. I think being aware of it and acting on it are two different things. I think i- i- law firms are definitely better at destroying and getting rid of electronic content, but they're probably still not anywhere where they need to be. You know, network file shares are out of control in a lot of places, and I think a lot of law firms even they've been hesitant to use other technologies like OneDrive, because they don't want those to get out of control before they can have some process in place in order to dispose of the content. So I know, from our technology perspective, we're working on developing additional technologies to help not only dispose of data, but help remediate existing data, so we can go back and help law firms do that and help them put processes in place before they even release, technologies like OneDrive. But yeah, it's overwhelming. I think it's like cleaning out your basement or cleaning out that closet that you've been shoving stuff in, that you don't even know where to start. So you just kind of you just put a a chair in front of the closet, and you never think about it again, but
Don't want to think about it.
yeah, it's a very overwhelming thing to think about. And we're talking about hundreds of terabytes of data in some law firms, if not more, that probably need to be remediated. So
And the
it's kind
flip
of
side
scary.
to that is, right, Tina, and the flip side to that is the fact that not only are you posing more risk, but you also have to adhere to now the increasing scale of privacy requirements,
Yep,
right? All these
absolutely.
different regulations coming out with certain compliance requirements that are making firms rethink their data governance strategy.
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
to take into account too.
Yeah, exactly. And if I, again, it's I feel like that it's, again, to use the cleaning out the closet analogy, maybe you can't clean out that closet right away. Maybe you'll get to it, but the next closet down the hallway, if you can organize that one ahead of time, then you're ahead of the game, so that at least the old stuff you'll figure out, but it's the stuff that's coming in, the new stuff. How do you keep that organized? And that's usually how I tell people is like, don't necessarily worry about what's there now, worry about what you're doing with stuff coming in the door. Because if you put a process in place, and this is really all about process, if you have a process in place, you have templates, you have structured controls and disposition policies in place, then when you start, filling up that closet again, it's all organized and your rule for getting rid of things, and you do it, and that closet stays organized and clean. And then periodically you can go back and start cleaning out the old closets. So,
I love that
that's,
analogy.
Yeah,
yeah.
I gotta say this is hitting shockingly close to home right now. We've been using our spare bedroom in our apartment as a storage room for the last like 5 months, and we have to clean it this weekend. So, but my
Yeah.
girlfriend, she just cleaned out the hallway closet, and I said, "Why are you doing that?" And she said, "Because I have space for stuff for that back room now." So it all makes
Yeah.
sense, Tina.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
clicking.
I know. Yeah. I think it's one of those things. It just resonates with everybody because
Hmm.
it's very easy. I mean, if you think about, I don't even look at the amount of email I have anymore, like the count. I used to keep count. I used to, believe it or not, I used to keep my email to under like 100 items in my inbox at any
Unbelievable.
given point in time, and that's impossible. I
Yeah.
don't even look at it anymore. Every once in a while, I try to organize it and clean it out, but it's just overwhelming. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, if companies start putting processes in place on a go forward basis, then they know everything in the door is going into those correct buckets. It's being organized and disposed of and dealt with the way and managed and governed the way it should be. And then again, you can go back and clean up stuff later.
So powerful. And it's like future proofing yourself, right? So
Yep,
making sure that
exactly.
you're not only thinking about today, but tomorrow as
Mm.
well. So important. I know, Mike, I think you had another question, so I'll let you.
Yeah, no, this conversation reminds me a lot. Earlier in the summer, Tina, you were a part of a panelist discussion for a webinar we were doing. I can't remember if it was linked with Microsoft or not.
I think it's
But
still Line Summit.
It's an Elsa, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And basically, you were talking about data minimization and data disposition, and you referred to it as, it's not an overnight thing. It's a journey. It's like a process that you have to to sort of
Yeah.
embark on, like you're saying. Is it mostly just a combination of we just have too much data nowadays, or like have we kind of let that future proofing and let that planning go by the wayside a little bit?
I think the volume of data is just
Hmm.
it's tremendous. It's increased, I think every year I feel like it increases, tenfold. It's kind of out of control. But so it is a process, it is a journey. And again, it starts with process. Technology is great, but technology will not solve your problem if you don't have a process in place. There's always that people process technology um,
Hmm.
uh, phrase that everybody throws around, but it's true. You can have the best technology in the world, but if you don't have a process on how to use and deploy it, then you might as well just, you're paying for nothing. You need to know what you want to do and document it and put it down on paper. And documentation and process mapping doesn't happen as much as it really should in a lot, in a lot of organizations. I mean, certainly we're guilty of it here. There's also other organizations I've worked at where, before you even embark on developing anything or doing anything, you should document what you want to do, right? And how you want it to work and create documentation and diagrams around what that looks like. And then once
Hmm.
you have that down, then you can shop for the technology that you need and find the right piece of technology that fits. And then you can also implement that technology. So it's really important, I think, to understand the goals, the ultimate goals, and that you have, and what the risks are associated with what you're trying to do, mapped out ahead of time. And then again, the other things, and plans will adjust over time. I mean, they're not going to stay the same throughout
Hmm.
time, but if you don't at least understand what you want to do. And it's really about process, I think.
Exactly. And, I feel like we also went through quite a journey in this podcast too, right? We were talking about hybrid work and, the analogy with the closet and everything. So any last thoughts, anything that you would want our listeners to take away from the conversation that we had today, Tina? Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
Well, I think just to remain kind of open-minded with how things are going. You know, uh, as we all found out very quickly, how quickly things can change and how we need to adjust. And I think goes, true. That rings true for any organization and planning, is that you always have to know, you always have to have a plan B and know what you're going to do if in the event of something happening. But if you again have a plan in place, things are a lot easier if you know what you're going to do if something should occur, and how you want, you know just make sure you have that plan B. I'm a kind of a plan B kind of person anyway, is always have that fallback. And um
Yeah.
to just in case, and just to stay flexible, I think, is because otherwise, if you're too rigid, then it's just life becomes just too stressful. So stay flexible, people.
And we're back. I'm truly glad that we were able to bring that conversation to our audience. Tina is just a wealth of knowledge here at Prosperoware and the industry at large, honestly. So it was always great to have her in for a conversation, and this one's been a long time in the making, that's for sure. But that'll do it for another episode of Prosperotune, and wouldn't you know, we're already 5 episodes into our second season, which is exciting. Until next time, I'm Mike Zwissa, and this is Prosperotune.